Hi, folks. Welcome to UNR Poli Sci in Exile. I'm Dr. Ian Hartshorn. I'm joined, as always, by Dr. Nick Seltzer. How are you, Dr. Seltzer?
I'm doing good, Ian. How are you?
And I'm good, thanks. We also have a very special guest with us, Dr. Allison Evans. Hello, Dr. Evans. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me.
Our pleasure. So,
Yes.
what do we have on tap for today, Nick?
We're going to talk about political science 211, which I understand both of you are teaching.
That's right.
Yeah, we sure are. This is the Introduction to Comparative Politics class, which might not be the most exciting name of a class, but it's really cool because we take on massive questions, questions that many people have probably wondered a little bit throughout their lives, and scholars have pondered for a very long time, such as, why are some countries democracies and others aren't? How did countries that weren't democracies and now are, how did they get there? Or
Mm.
like, why are some countries that were democracies, well, how did they get back to being authoritarian? So we really try to think of these big questions, and then we'll study actual countries to figure out what the answers to some of these questions are to the best of our ability. So that's, I guess, one way of thinking about it.
Yeah, I like this class. It always reminds me of the two fish swimming in a fishbowl, and one starts talking about water, and the other one says, "What's water?" Right? We're constantly surrounded by this weird thing called the state, right? That we're embedded in, and sometimes we know that it's there when it's not doing what we want it to do, or when we're mad at it, or it's not delivering the services we expect it to. But this is one of the classes that you can take in the political science curriculum that's really going to interrogate what the state is. What is this thing called the state? How is it different from other terms and concepts that we encounter, like nations and people? How is it different from empires or cities or other polities? And I like to spend a lot of time in this class just getting that really fundamental question of, if political science is at least in part the science of statecraft, what is this creature called the state that we're always engaging in? So that's one of the things I like to talk about in the class.
Mm. That sounds fascinating. I think, one question I've sort of encountered in the popular political discourse, we throw around these terms like socialism and capitalism. We throw those along, and sometimes I can't really tell what they mean. Like, I know Venezuela is socialist, and if we do not enact the right policies here in the United States, then we are going to be socialist like Venezuela. But I think, isn't the economy of Venezuela, isn't it sort of, have a sort of narrow characteristic? It's a petro state. Right, and I ask myself, can the United States be socialist in the same sense that Venezuela is socialist? And if so, how? And if not, what does this word socialist really mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's also something we tackle in this class. We'll look at different ideologies that people have. And, in the United States, the ideological spectrum is really narrow when you think of all the ideologies that exist out there, from fascism to, like you said, socialism or communism to liberalism, social democracy, and things like that. And of course, those ideologies tend to imply a desired political economic system. And so that's another thing we'll look at. And we'll also look at what those implications are in terms of, well, why are some countries wealthy and others aren't?
Mm.
All of these kinds of questions related to ideology, related to how to structure an economy so it becomes wealthy, or what are some of the pitfalls that economies have. So, like with the Venezuela example, is an excellent one, right? If you put all your eggs in one basket, that's oil. When oil prices are doing really well, you're going to be really rich. But when oil prices aren't, that's going to be a big problem for your population.
Mm.
Yeah. I think Nick's question also brings up another good topic, which is, you think about the United States and you think about Venezuela, and that kind of gets us to this whole idea that's at the core of comparative politics, which is comparison. When and how and where do we choose states to compare? Is Venezuela a good comparison for political economy in the United States, or is it a bad one? Should we base it on size? So should we go find a country to compare to the United States to that has 300 million plus people? Should we look at historical legacies, a country that kind of seems the same? Maybe we should think about language. Maybe the United States should be compared to Australia or the United Kingdom. These are all different ways that we could think about how we might do comparisons. And that's something we'll talk about in class as well, is like what makes a good comparison, what makes a weaker comparison, and how we can do that in such a way that we can actually gain insights from the comparison. So it's not just rhetoric.
Okay, I got a tough question. I'm thinking about taking Political Science 211, but I can't decide if I should take Dr. Evans' class or Dr. Hartshorn's class. Dr. Evans, why should I take your class?
Well, I think that I'm a good teacher. No, but for reals, I think that we have a lot of fun in my class. And one thing I like to do is have us read current events articles alongside the textbook. So Dr. Hartshorn and I actually use the same textbook. So one thing I try to do is say, okay, so this is, our week on political economy. Let's look at some stuff that's happening around the world right now. And I want to draw that connection between, the theories and the various countries that we're going to be studying, and then what's happening right now.
Well, that sounds great, Dr. Evans. How about you, Dr. Hartshorn? I'm still looking.
I'm sold. I think people should take Dr. Evans' class. No, these classes are going to be very similar. We're both delivering in the online format, and I think that one of the things that's a little bit different and a little bit unique, and one of the things that's nice about taking classes with comparative politics scholars at UNR is that we always bring a little bit of our regional specialty to the topic. Even though we're going to talk about the whole world, the concept of the state, the concept of an economy, that's always colored by the specialties that different scholars have. So Dr. Evans is a scholar of post-Soviet studies. She's an expert in Russia. She spent a lot of time there, speaks Russian. My focus is mostly on North Africa. I spent a lot of time in Egypt and Tunisia, the recent transitions that they underwent, and I think a lot about that. So when we reach for one of those examples, maybe of political economy, or reach for an example about ideology, if you're taking a class with Dr. Evans, you might get a little bit more of that Eastern European, Central Asian, post-Soviet. And if you're taking a class with me, you might get a little bit more of North Africa, Middle East, Levant. That's one of the differences maybe in some of those classes, but hopefully everyone will enjoy it regardless of which instructor you take it with.
Well, unfortunately, I don't think that made my decision any easier.
C'est la vie, c'est la vie. But yeah, it should be a good course that's online and available no matter what people's situations are this fall with either Dr. Evans or myself.
Sounds good.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Evans, for joining us today, and thank you for your great questions, Dr. Seltzer. And we'll be back again talking about more fall classes and more fun with political science next time on UNR Poli Sci in Exile. Thanks, everybody.